Hello, and welcome to part one of our lecture on the nervous system. When you think of the nervous system, what do you think of? Is it the brain? Is it the spinal cord? What other parts of the nervous system do you know? Any ideas? So brain, spine. Have you guys heard of nerves? What about axons? Did we mention axons when we covered the muscles by any chance? Well, in this lecture, we'll talk about nervous tissue. So that's the tissue associated with the nervous tissue. In further lectures, we'll talk about the brain, we'll talk about the spinal cord, and we'll talk about something called the peripheral nervous system. So, your SLOs are identify the structural divisions, the nervous system, and functional divisions. Structure is where it is. Function, what it does. And you'll need to know both of those for the exam. So, the structural divisions of the nervous system. This is where it's located. And it's divided into the central nervous system, which is abbreviated CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, which is PNS. The central nervous system, or CNS, is the brain, and the spinal cord, which ends about L2. So it's central. So if I ask you on the test, what's the central nervous system, you'll tell me brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system is everything else. Coming off the spine, we have these nerves. We have 32 spinal nerves, we have 12 cranial nerves. They are actually myelinated axons going in and out of the brain. And ganglia. Ganglia are bunches of cell bodies outside of the nervous system. Whenever I ask, what do you think's in the peripheral nervous system, I always have one smart student that says, everything that is not the brain and the spine. So, from our last slide, we talked about how the brain and the spinal cord, probably should not write green on green, is the central nervous system, and everything outside is the peripheral nervous system. And it all works together to do three things: collect information, process it, and make a response. So let's draw a rod here. A rod is a type of photoreceptor. It detects what you see. And it has a nerve, that's in your peripheral nervous system, that goes into the brain and actually ends up in the occipital lobe. The rod is going to detect black and white, such as that black Crown Victoria that is sitting on the side of the freeway as you're listening and using your phone. You go, wait a minute, that's a police officer. So the brain is going to process, oh my goodness, I just saw a black and white Crown Victoria. It must be a police officer. Am I speeding? Well, I know you guys don't speed, but somebody else might go, oh, I'm speeding. I should probably slow down. So the response would be slowing down. So over here, we have different sensory receptors here, and those are taking things in, such as pain, and it's going to go to the spinal cord, goes up to the brain, processes, and it comes out how you decide to respond to it. So if I step on a tack, so tack, receptor, ouch, CNS, decides move foot. So that is what the body would do. So receptors collect information. And you could have some things like this one. Do you guys remember what that one is? We had it in the skin chapter. Yes, it's a laminated or Passerian corpuscle. You could have free nerve endings. This could just be pain or temperature. Or you can have very specialized receptors. This is actually in your nose, and it's detecting smell. This one, I am not completely sure what it's supposed to be. It looks a little bit like a taste bud, though. So your receptors take information. Then they travel on neurons. Remember I said nerves are in the peripheral nervous system? A neuron is one cell. So the receptors are taking information on neuron. So you smell a skunk, that information goes on a neuron to the central nervous system. Now, sense neurons are afferent. So on the last slide, we talked about sensing things. Sensing things you'd use receptors for, and it travels on afferent neurons. So sensory input, afferent. And it goes to the brain for integration. So in the last example, we smelled a skunk, one on an afferent neuron, actually this part of the brain, and you're like, oh, that's a skunk. What you're using right now, you have hair cells in your ear, they're detecting sound, it's actually going to end up right here in the temporal lobe, and you hopefully are hearing this. So the brain and the central nervous system has integration neurons. They choose what to do. So if you smell a skunk, you might choose to plug your nose or go somewhere else. Now, the brain's job in the spinal cord is to respond to. So, what then happens is the central nervous system is going to send a signal on effectors, which could be muscles or glands. So, muscles or glands, by efferent neurons. So, an efferent neuron is a motor neuron. It goes out of the central nervous system. So, we have a tack. It's a very big tack right here. And what's going to happen is you step on the tack. Oh no, that's going to hurt. So you have an afferent neuron taking the signal, and it takes it actually into the spinal cord. Now, since stepping on a tack is going to be a reflex, it actually gets integrated inside the spinal cord. Something else might get integrated up in the brain. So what's going to happen is the spinal cord goes, oh, tack, bad, we might get damage. So it decides to send signals on efferent neurons to a muscle to retract your leg. So there are 3 divisions. There is the afferent division. That is sense equals afferent. It's located in the PNS. So, sensory receptors see something or hear the newest Taylor Swift song on the radio, and it sends signals on afferent neurons to the brain or spinal cord. So, afferent neurons carry information to the central nervous system. Then we have integration. It is the CNS. So the CNS here integrates. It takes on the sense input and decides what the response is. So if I hear Taylor Swift's new song, I decide I want to listen to another channel. So you get motor output, so efferent. So the motor division is efferent. It is sending signals to muscles, muscles, or glands. And again, that is located in the PNS. So in summary, we have the central nervous system, the brain and spine, and the peripheral nervous system, which is divided into afferent, which is sensing, and efferent, which is sending messages to muscles and glands. So the peripheral nervous system has an afferent division and efferent division. We'll learn later it has autonomic and somatic subdivisions. So what happens? You sense something. It goes to the central nervous system to integrate, and it sends its reaction onto the peripheral nervous system. So, define afferent, efferent, integration, central nervous system, and peripheral nervous system. So, afferent is sense. It is to brain. Efferent is motor. What's it to? Muscle or gland. Integration is making up your mind. So choose response. The central nervous system is the brain plus spine. And the nervous system is nerves, not neuron, nerves, ganglia, and receptors.